Hello there and welcome to Perfect Glamour Fashion. Today we're going to be learning how to make a boot cut trouser. Alright guys, let's get started. The first thing we're going to be marking is our crotch depth. So while marking your crotch line, you're going to shift your tape and start from 1.5 or 2 depending on how big you want your band to be. So shift your tape upwards and start by 2 or 1.5. So I've marked my crotch depth. Whatever your crotch is, you're going to mark it, and then I'm going to mark my hip depth. I always like to mark on 2 different places so that I'll make sure that my line is straight. This is very important, especially when you're working with a stretchy material or a chiffon material, any material that is shaky, when you're marking it. So it's important that you mark in 2 places. The next thing I'm going to be marking is my hip circumference divided by 4, plus I'm using 1/2 inch for this because the material is quite stretchy. So if your material is not stretchy, use 1 inch for it. Okay, so hip divided by 4 plus 1. Then I'll rule down to form my angle. You're going to rule down from the tip to the crotch line to form your angle. And then in order to mark what was the crotch extension, you divide your hip divided by 4 divided by 4. So hip divided by 8 is what you use to mark your crotch extension, and then you will connect from the hip to the crotch. Just make sure that that curve there is up to 1 inch. That was what I measured. Measure 1 inch and make sure that that curve is up to 1 inch. When we've done that, we'll move over to the hip, to the waist. The waist divided by 4, your waist circumference divided by 4, plus your 1 inch for that. Then you would add sewing allowance, 1/2 inch, 1 inch, depending on how stretchy or not stretchy your material is. The trouser is actually a very simple trouser. Just follow me. Now I'm marking where my dart would be. I'm just trying to rule out the darts. You see the material is stretchy, so I'm being careful. Just rule out the darts. I've already given the 1 inch sewing allowance for the dart, so I'm just ruling it out so that it will be very easy for me to sew it on the material. When we've done this, the next thing we're going to be doing is to divide the crotch line by 2. So when I found the midpoint, I'm just going to mark the midpoint. I'm going to mark whatever I got as a midpoint. I'm going to mark it all the way down. This is in order to form a grain line. So I'll just form a straight line. This is actually important for this type of trouser. Then I will come down by 3 inches and mark my tie line. I'll mark my nail line, or the play wherever you want your flay for the boot cut to start. That's where you're going to mark as your new line. So if you want it to start by the hip, by the thigh, by the knee, or a little below the knee, these are 3 different types of boot cut. Some start by the thigh, some start by the knee, some start a little below the knee. So wherever you want your flay for your trouser to start, that's where you will mark as the new length. So I want mine to start on my knee. That's why I marked this new line. This is me marking the hem line. I know you can't see it because my table is kind of short. So yeah, so I'm closing up the grain line to make it more visible. Yes, so you're just going to roll it out like this. Roll it out so that it will be visible for you to take your measurement, because it's going to serve as the center of the trouser. You will now have to take your measurement on both sides of it. So I divided my tie by 2, and then I'm marking my tie divided by 2. In order to know how to mark it, I also divided it by 2. So I'll mark one part of it on the right side of the grain line and the other part of it on the left side of the grain line. I hope you make that is clear. So my nail divided by 2 also, I will also mark it by dividing it by 2 and marking one on one side and one on the other side to form my nail divided by 2. Now for the flayed part, that's the hemline. For the hemline, you are going to, it's really, there's no rules to this thing. Okay, so you have to mark the hemline to be as big as you want your flay to be. From anything from 20 and above is already good once your nail is below 15. Okay, if your nail circumference is below 15, anything from 20-25 is already going to form your boot cut. For me, I used 20 because I'm a small person. Okay, I'm a small person. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to connect it. So you can just rule it out, look at it. If it's going to give you what you want, go ahead. If it's not going to give you what you want, you increase your flay down. So whatever you add to your down is what will determine how flayed your trouser is going to be down there. If you really want it to come out full and flayed, you have to measure anything around 25 and above. Okay, 25, 30, 40, depending on how big or how slim you are. If you're small like me, then 25, 30 is good for you. All right, we're going to cut that out. You guys, this material was really shifting. I had to place my what is it called now, my gas iron to hold it up for me. Okay, so we're going to be cutting the back now. We're done with the front. Very easy. So to get the back, you're going to go up from the waistline. You're going to go up by 2 inches, and then from the crotch part, you're going to come in by 2 inches. Okay, you're going to come in by 2 inches, and then from the side of the waist, you're going to come out by 2 inches. So you connect the 2 inches or the 1.5 inch that you went up by to the side, the 2 inches that you came up from the side, and then the hip measurements at the hip line, you're going to measure 2 inches also, and then connect the lines. I hope that was clear. Now on that crotch extension, you're going to come down by 1/2 inch, and you're going to measure 2.5 inch out, or 2 inches, depending on how slim you are. So you're just going to basically connect these points. Our trouser is almost ready. Just connect these points. Next thing we're going to be doing is, okay, this is me just making sure that all my measurements are accurate. Now at the you're going to connect what you have at the crotch extension to your nail. Then for the side part of your nail, you're going to come up by 1.5 inch, not 2 inches, 1.5 inch, and you're going to connect your line. After doing that, you're going to, with your long ruler, connect all this down to your hemline. At the hemline, you will come up by 1 inch. I don't know if you were able to see that. And then when you come up by 1 inch by the hemline, you will connect, and then your back part is done. It's so easy. If you watched this video up to this point, thank you very much for staying with me. But then don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to this channel, because we post sewing tutorials every single week. So what are you waiting for? Join us today. So the dart for the back is usually 5 inches long. Yes, it's 5 inches long, and it is 4 by 5. Okay, you come out from the center of the back by 4, and then you go down by 5. So this is me cutting out the band for this cloth, this trouser. Okay, I'm using my waist divided by 2. Okay, because I folded this material into 2, so my waist divided by 2 plus 1.5 for zip and sewing allowance. Now for my band, remember I removed 1.5 inch because I want my band to be 2 inches. Okay, so I'm currently marking 5 inches. So 4 inches is going to be for the band, that is the 2 inches, you understand, and then the other 1 inch is going to be as sewing and allowance for the upper part and the lower part. Okay, I hope that is clear. All right, so I'm using 5 inches. So by the time I bend it, it's going to be 2.5 inches. You know, 5 divided by 2 is 2.5. You get? So I have 2.5 inches. I always like to reduce 1/2 inch from the tip of my band, so you can also do the same. All right, we are ready to sew. Now I've sewn in the darts. I've sewn in the darts for both the front and the back. The next thing I'm going to be doing right now is to join the sides. This is the back piece. I'll join the front piece to it, a matching front piece to it. Okay, it's also important that you mark your front and your back so that you don't go and join your fronts to the back, especially when you're using identical materials that both their front and the back looks identical. So I will join the side, and then I will join the inner area, the inseam, the crotch area. I will do that for both sides. When I'm done doing it for both sides, my trouser is almost ready. The next thing I'm just going to do is to join the crotch line for the both sides, for the right side and for the left side. Just sew through the middle. It's always important you use pin to pin the midpoints, and I usually start sewing from the middle. I sew from the middle to the right and from the middle to the left. It helps me to make sure that I'm accurate. So now I'm done sewing. The next thing I'm going to do is to trim the back, because you don't want all those bulging out at the back. Okay, you're going to trim the back to be identical with the front. Once I'm done doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to turn it over. Now when I've turned it over, I'm going to be opening up a part for the sleeve, the zip, because I want it to have a side zip. Okay, I don't want the zip to be at the back or the front. So I'm just going to open up one of the sides, any of the sides I choose, whether your left or your right depending on where you're more comfortable opening your zip from. Okay, so I'm just loosening out the right side. That's where I'm going to be fixing up my zipper. I'm going to be fixing it with the sewing allowance I left there. Okay, so when I'm done doing that, the next thing I'm going to do is to bring in my band. I'm just going to sew a straight band because of the kind of material it is. You can do the sewing and overlocking or top stitching, however you want to do it. So now we are done. We are almost ready. The next thing we're going to do is to sew in our zip. And once we are done sewing in our zip, our trouser is ready. Thank you for watching. I'm not dead then too.